What is the Schomburg Center? To me, it is home. The place where we come to see who we really are, not just somebody else's reflection of who we are.
The Schomburg Center is a place of culture, it's a place of history, it's a place of knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is a repository of all of the things that has documented our sense of worth as a people.
For me, that means that it is a place of immense power.
The Schomburg Center is a public research library and a cultural institution.
For the study of the Pan-African world.
It is perhaps the best in the world.
My Schomburg Center is Arturo Alfonso Schomburg.
Arturo Schomburg said, Black history and culture and intellect exists at a time when most people didn't believe that. He collected those evidences, and that became the beginning of the collection.
And it has expanded and has grown to where it is now a world-class institution.
It holds over 10 million items.
There's no parallel anywhere that brings to light what we as people of color have done, what we continue to do.
Black culture is all of culture. The universals that animate everyone's life happen here for all people.
The Schomburg, for me, is one of the center pillars of Harlem. When I started the journey of finding out about Red Rooster and Harlem, the very first place I went to was the Schomburg.
Researchers from around the world come and use what we have here.
I could not have written just about any of the books that I've written without the Schomburg Center's archives, resources.
The Schomburg Center is much more than a library. We encourage lifelong learning and exploration.
The Junior Scholars Program is a Saturday program with students from 5th grade to senior year in high school to help them learn about Black history and culture.
Learning about my history is important because it teaches me who I am.
The Schomburg Junior Scholars Program is going to do nothing but uplift them.
So many talented and brilliant people have walked the corridors of this amazing institution over the years. From Octavia Butler to Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, Ella Fitzgerald, Alvin Ailey, and Harry Belafonte, who graced the stage in this room of the American Negro Theater.
This place evokes great memories. It was a gift to us in our community to really try to find that space to reflect expressions of Black experience. I just knew that the environment and what I saw these young African Americans doing was a place I needed to be.
What is my Schomburg Center? I'm standing here at the Cosmogram, which underneath holds the ashes of the poet Langston Hughes. On the evening when this Cosmogram was dedicated, people began to empty out of the auditorium. A jazz trio struck up, and to my amazement, Amira Baraka went over and asked Maya Angelou for a dance. And they started to dance on top of the Cosmogram, on top of the ashes of Langston Hughes, and I felt what a fitting way to kiss the memory of Langston.
The Schomburg Center is a research institute and a library, but it's so much more than that.
There's something going on every day.
So many amazing people come here to talk about their creative craft, to share what inspires them. The Schomburg Center's collections help to tell stories even beyond our walls.
The Schomburg Center is here in this exhibition at MoMA, One Way Ticket, Jacob Lawrence's Migration Series. We depend on the resources of the Schomburg to enable us to tell this story. Thinking about the implications of the past on the present is absolutely crucial for understanding the next steps, understanding what we have to do to go forward.
We today have the responsibility of making sure that new artists and activists, new scholars and poets know that this place continues to be a resource and a source of inspiration for the work that we must continue to do.
The Schomburg Center is knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is education.
The Schomburg Center is home, it is family, it is foundational.
The Schomburg Center is inspiration.
The Schomburg is with me in everything that I do.
Community, inside and out.
The Schomburg Center is us.
The Schomburg Center is you, and we invite each and every one of you to find your Schomburg Center.
Good evening. Just from that introduction, I'm inspired to do more. You know, my name is Cheryl Wilkins, co-director along with Geraldine Downing of the Center for Justice at Columbia University, and co-founder along with Kathy Boudin, who we are here to celebrate today. Happy birthday, Kathy. Yeah, I want to start by thanking Kevin Matthews and the team of the Schomburg Center for graciously hosting us in this inaugural Kathy Boudin Lecture. It's awesome. Awesome place to be on a day like today. Kathy's work focused on the causes and consequences of mass incarceration and the development of strategies to transform the day-to-day damage that the system has caused. Kathy focused on strengthening mother-child relationships, building a teen time program, bringing back college to Bedford Hills after the Pell Grants were removed, and building an educational program in the height of the HIV and AIDS epidemic. That's just to name a few. Did I mention she did this while she was incarcerated? When she was released from prison in 2003, she didn't slow down one bit, co-founding the Coming Home program at Mount Sinai St. Luke's, where they provide health care for people returning from incarceration, developing a restorative justice practice program inside prisons for long-termers, whom were sentenced sometimes as juveniles, co-founding the Releasing Aging from People's program, and of course, the Center for Justice. Kathy's work was also centered on participation and the leadership of those who are deeply impacted by the issues. But if we look at how incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, and directly impacted women are rising up to say, what about her? Free her until she's free. No need to say who was leading those chants. Yes, that's the great one, Kathy Boudin. And so, you know, it goes on, but she was a leader with also other programs such as the Survivors Justice Project, Women Building Up, Gender Justice Campaign, Women Transcending, The Right to Heal, the International Formerly Incarcerated Women's Network. I mean, Kathy's work spanned across the globe, inside prisons, locally, internationally, and this woman was amazing. She was simply amazing. Tonight, we are honored to have a group of folks to take part in the discussion and on their relationship to Kathy and the connection between their work and the issues that Kathy cared deeply about. But before we start, we have to start with a lifetime friend and a sister of Kathy, offering some opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to the Dr. Angela Davis, our Shiro.
You don't need no help.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. And thank you to the Center for Justice, to Geraldine, and to the entire Beyond the Bars team. And let me also say happy birthday, Kathy. As I also say happy birthday to Malcolm. And the coincidence of their birthdays tells us a great deal about the woman we've come to honor this afternoon. I find it almost impossible to believe that more than a year has passed since our friend, our comrade, our mentor, Kathy Boudin, joined the Ancestors. I know that during the intervening period, many of us, and by the way, she intentionally made her transition on May 1st. Let me not forget to say that. And during the intervening period, many of us have devoted extended periods of reflection on the life and contributions of this extraordinary human being. I know that we all miss her terribly, and I know that our universe is so much more bereft of meaning than we could have ever imagined it might be, with Kathy inhabiting our memories rather than our various quotidian lives. A full year has gone by, and we miss her terribly. We miss her prodding. We miss the way she might herself quietly arrive at a monumental insight and never admit that she was the one who figured it out. We miss her telephone calls and her insistence on calling rather than texting. I am deeply honored that I've been asked to participate in this collective effort to pay tribute to Kathy this evening. But how does one praise a person knowing that if she were here, she would protest the sharp focus on her as an individual? A person whose very mode of inhabiting our world is never to separate herself from her comrades, neither in a material sense, not even conceptually. So perhaps rather than attempt to distort and misconstrue her life so that it conforms to the usual pattern of an individual's life that is set apart as an example for others, I want to respect Kathy's desire to imagine herself not so much as an extraordinary person, which of course we all know she was, whom one sets aside so that we get to witness individual genius, but rather as always deeply embedded in radical practices that were always collective. And so I'm thinking about Kathy's family, her comrades, her friends. Special shout out to Chesa and Valerie and Aiden and Bill and Bernadine, who are all together in Butler. And Kathy would be with them if she were here with us. And I'm not sure whether Nancy is here, but a shout out to Nancy. And I remember that Bill said to me at the memorial last September that it was so hard to choose people to speak because we all know that Kathy had at least 10,000 best friends. And, you know, at first, I wanted to persuade Kathy that she needed to let go of the insistence on refusing individualized responsibility for the amazing accomplishments, especially connected to her time in prison and her work at the Center for Justice. But Kathy was, I think, the most principled person I have ever known. She could not even pretend to accept compliments as an individual for work that was deeply collective. So now it seems that there's something so different, so revealing about the way she did her work and about the way she lived her life, something that we can all learn from. How she always thought in community, how she always lived in community. And of course, I think we all know that most of the time it's always easier to do it alone. But collective work, she always let us all know, was so much more fulfilling. collective work is work that changes institutions, work that changes the way we speak. Kathy was deeply concerned with language. Work that changes the way we live. So the more I thought about it, the more it seemed that there was something quite powerful that we could learn about relationships, about organizing, about building community. And this is the work that Kathy always knew how to do. When I think about Kathy as I knew her in high school, I think of her as bringing people together, making introductions in such a way that the two kids knew that they were supposed to play together, or talk together, or make something together. I remember walking in demonstrations with Kathy and her community. I remember marching against the atom bomb, what we used to call the atom bomb, across George Washington Bridge. I remember picketing Woolworth. I remember when she traveled to Cuba in 1960, shortly after the triumph of the Cuban Revolution, with her father, who was the attorney for the new revolutionary government in Cuba. And I remember her coming back with stories that made us instantly feel like we were a part of that revolution. So that a year ago, when I attended an international youth festival in Helsinki, Finland, I would think about Kathy when I was dancing through the streets of that city with the Cuban delegation. And I remember, as I said before, how we picketed Woolworth at 42nd Street because of this store's practices of racial segregation in the South. As the sit-ins were happening in the South, we were demonstrating solidarity with those who were on the front line. I know how hard Kathy worked on the Beyond the Bars conferences, and how hard she worked with Cheryl, and how hard she worked with the entire team. From the very conceptualization of the conferences, I can remember when she would think long and hard about what should be the theme of the upcoming conference, and how many conversations she had with how many people before they finally arrived at a theme. She was always working with others. She was always learning and teaching, the learning inseparable from the teaching, and the teaching born of her role as an always active learner. You know, many people strive to become the first of their category to accomplish something. The first Black person, the first woman, the first incarcerated person. Well, Kathy is represented as the first woman in the New York State prison system to earn a master's degree. But Kathy never wanted to be first. And wherever she went, she always took others with her because she did not want to inhabit the world alone, even when she accomplished things by sheer will. She always knew that she was not alone. And I think she hated being alone because of accomplishments like that. So many people have learned how to revel in the fact that they've reached a certain goal before anyone else of their particular category. But I got the feeling that Kathy hated it. It felt lonely. So of course she would do everything she could to make sure that she did not remain alone there. One of the most impressive and one of the most dramatic moments I think I have ever experienced was at what I think must have been the second Beyond the Bars conference. You all will correct me if I'm wrong. When she asked if there were any formerly incarcerated people in the audience. And of course, people began to pour onto the stage. And I remember how many of them so proudly announced that they were formerly incarcerated and that they had earned their bachelor's or master's, or some were working on their doctorates. And so many of them thanked Kathy for inspiring and helping them. And now I would say Kathy is not alone. In the past decade, revolutionary transformations have occurred in the way this society now thinks about people who have spent time behind bars. It would have not been possible to imagine when Kathy and Cheryl first got out that within such a relatively short period of time, people would be willing to look at and envision formerly incarcerated people in a very different way. And I think we owe Kathy and all of her comrades for doing the work that made that possible. And I see her right over our shoulders, applauding with us as we dedicate ourselves to move forward even further. Thank you so much. My friend, my sister, my comrade, Kathy. And let me ask the rest of the panel to come up on stage now.
Yes, we have a stage full of Kathy's friends here. As you look at this panel, this is a Kathy Boudin panel. We have a young person, we have a male, we have activists, we have folks from around the country, around the world. And so this is the way Kathy always put together panel discussions. You will never see a panel with, all white men, on a panel. So this always has to be a mixture because that's how we're going to make change. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all coming in and saying a few words about my dear friend.
So I'm going to ask my panelists to turn on your microphones.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah. It's on. Did you get mic'd yet? Yeah, it's on. Oh.
It's on.
All right, can we hear you? All right. Let's give another round of applause for that beautiful introduction to Angela. You know, I was noticing, everybody checking out our shoes? No one's like trying to walk around in heels and those uncomfortable things anymore. It's so refreshing. We're liberated from that. So my name is Sophia Elijah, and I am tremendously honored to be moderating our panel discussion this evening. We're going to start off with, I'm going to turn to you, Jose, and I'm going to ask you to kick us off by sharing a quick, emphasis on quick, explanation of what you do in the world and a short anecdote about Kathy.
Well, a quick, I try to get people home from prison.
Okay.
And a lesson that I learned from Kathy is, well, one of the many. Don't let differences be the only reason for not developing a relationship.
All right. I think we can work with that. I'm going to switch over here to my left. To you, Deb. Quickly share with the audience who you are and a quick anecdote about something that you learned from Kathy.
Yeah. So my name's Debbie Kilroy. I'm from Australia on unceded stolen lands of Meanjin. I met Kathy before, well, I knew Kathy before Kathy knew me, and I knew Kathy. We started an organisation in Australia called Sisters Inside. So we were women in prison that started our own organisation to actually dismantle the prison industrial complex. In 1998, someone gave me a little book, like a book of writings, and there was a chapter in there by Kathy and another woman about parenting from a distance. And it resonated with us all, where we actually then took that program into the prison and ran parenting from a distance for the lifers and long-termers. So I knew Kathy before I knew Kathy.
Okay, thank you. So Sophia wants me to. I asked Angela to tell us where she first met Kathy, and she's like, "Oh God, I gotta remember."
Well, no, I can actually remember. It was in September of 1959.
I'm impressed.
At 40 Charlton Street in the Village.
I'm even more impressed. Okay.
Which was the address, remains the address of Elizabeth Irwin High School.
Okay.
I was accepted into a program that was organized by the Quakers American Friends Service Committee. And the program proposed to bring black students from the South to live with white families in the North and attend white or integrated schools. They called it an exchange program, but they didn't bring the white students from the North out to live with black families in the South. And so Kathy was in my high school class. She was one of the 20, there were 28 of us, I believe. That's how I met her. And she stood out immediately, and we became fast friends.
Wow, I love it. I love it.
And later, we were on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted. Together. And I said at the memorial that I felt far more comfortable knowing that Kathy had preceded me by several months on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. So.
Talk about full circle.
Yeah.
I love it. Before I turn to you, Francis, with a question, I want us to pause and acknowledge David in our audience. What a joy that, David, you came home in time to spend some time with Kathy. Yes. So, Francis.
Yes.
I'm going to turn to you. If you would, tell us how Kathy's work has influenced the work that you're doing in the world today, and tell the audience what you do.
Hello, guys. My name is Francis Ajay. I work with an organization called Echoes of Incarceration, where we teach. Yes, sir. At Echoes, we teach young people who's been affected by the system, mass incarceration, child of incarcerated. We teach young people technical camera skills and advocacy skills. And most of those advocacy skills we picked up from Kathy and the Osborne Association and such. So that's my direct connection to Kathy right there.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to go back to my left. You know, I tend to always go to the left, so this is why I'm making myself sit in the middle, so I have to shift sometimes to the right. No disrespect. So, Deb, thinking of Kathy's legacy, what would you say, from your standpoint, the work that you do, is the most important thing that she has left with us that you seek to promote in the future?
Oh, a bit sad then.
For you, yeah.
I think Kathy left us with many things. One of the things of Kathy's legacy that we will carry forward as formerly incarcerated women will be the International Network of Formerly Incarcerated Women. Kathy and I and a number of other formerly incarcerated women travelled to Bogota in 2018 for a Women in Prison conference. And out of that, when we all came back home, we started with the National Council here with Andrea James and Kathy and Cheryl. There was a number of us and other formerly incarcerated women around the world, a organising committee to organise the International Network of Formerly Incarcerated Women. Kathy travelled back to Bogota. The year later, I couldn't go that year. However, we had our first face-to-face meeting just 2 weeks ago in Bogota, where there was over 60 formerly incarcerated women from over 17 countries. And Kathy left that with us, like her organising skills, her way to build movements, her way to support all of us with an international perspective was really important, because sometimes the US think they're the central to the universe, but there's many other countries, and you know, and Kathy gave us that, and Angela, you remind us of that all the time, and you couldn't be there, but you were there with us, and yeah, we celebrated Kathy at that meeting as well, because we were there on May the 1st. So that's what she left with us. Her peacefulness, her energy, her love, her care, her inspiration, her creativity, her building up of formerly incarcerated women. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Jose, I'm going to pose a similar question to you. You've been involved with some phenomenal work to release aging people from prison. How, and many other things. So how has Kathy's legacy informed your work and inspired you and to keep on keeping up the good fight?
For me, you know, we know Kathy left us a lot of valuable treasures. But she founded rap. She was one of the founders, along with Laura Whitehorn and Mujahid Fareed. They founded the Release Aging People in Prison at a time when people like me were excluded from everything. All progressive legislation excluded us, and we were just languishing in prison for year, decade after decade. So rap became our only hope. And I'm sure there's some of us here who agree with me that if it wasn't for rap, I may very well not be here. I think others can say the same thing. So for me, Kathy left a grassroots, grinding organization that builds power from the ground up, that organizes formerly incarcerated people, organizes families with incarcerated loved ones, empowers us to demand. And 10 years later, we are in a position where we can get legislation passed that will free people on a larger scale than one on one. And I give Kathy all the credit for being such a visionary and thinking that her, Laura, and Mujahid Fareed can take on this journey of ending mass incarceration. I believe in it, and I believe in her dream. She left me that dream, and I'm gonna fulfill that dream to the best of my ability.
Francis?
Yes.
No pressure. How has Kathy's legacy influenced your work?
I wrote a little something. I think it's about time.
Okay.
I think Kathy wanted a society that had a safe space, some for children, some for adults, and all mankind. Sometimes wanting what's good for everyone can be costly, but ultimately it's the humility that Kathy had that made her so special. My mom was incarcerated back in 2012. She spent about 2.5 years in prison. She was initially supposed to do 7 to 12. With some of the programs that Kathy pioneered, helped myself and my siblings have a relationship with our mother during that time period. I have an autistic brother, Tyler, and a sister with Down syndrome, Francisca. It's 4 of us all together, 2 boys, 2 girls. During that period, you can all imagine how difficult our circumstances were. I was only 23, trying to keep a household intact. I had no idea what that looked like. But nothing could overtake the feeling of hugging and being able to physically touch and hold a loved one that's locked behind bars during these periods. And being able to do that had mostly to do with the visions that Kathy had. And so just me being here today is to basically give back, thank her. Maybe I didn't get the opportunity to say it while she was here, even though I did bump into her a lot. Maybe I didn't get enough to say, but I'm here to basically thank her for giving us the opportunity, giving us the vision to keep pushing. Because now here at ERCOS, we create a safe space. As you can see, this is Linda to my right taking photos of us. She's like the best photographer that I know. And I rate some of our videos that we do at the top because we are the affected. We are the ones that's going through it, that's telling the story. And we believe in telling our own stories versus somebody telling our stories. And I feel like all these strengths come from the visions, some of the visions that Kathy had. And so that's what I have to say to your question.
Thank you. Angela, you referenced those late night calls with Kathy about Beyond the Bars, like, oh my God, what's the theme going to be this year? Could you share some of those discussions with us? I'm sure people would like a peek into what those might have been like. I have my own repertoire of those late night calls, but we'd love to hear what some of them were like for you.
Well, first of all, may I just add to
Please.
The conversation about what impressed us most about Kathy, and I would say her determination.
Okay.
And oftentimes it was a quiet determination. And you know, I'm thinking about the work that Kathy did with rap, and how none of us would have expected that David would be released in time to spend some quality time with Kathy. And I think about that all the time. But also about the fact that she didn't necessarily privilege her own personal life over everyone else's. And therefore rap continues, and you will guarantee that many more older people are released from prison. But as for those conversations, you know, Kathy really liked to talk. And the telephone conversations would often be like an hour and a half, because I think she was really philosophical in her need to understand the implications of choices. I don't know. I hear her voice, and what about this? And how can we talk about feminism and what about women? But women and feminism aren't the same. A lot of people assume that all you have to do is add women, and then you have a feminist approach. I mean, I also remember an extended conversation about abolition, because Kathy was not convinced in the beginning. I remember right after she got out of prison, we took a long, long walk down Amsterdam Avenue. I don't know, maybe, a few 3 or 4 miles. And she said, I know you have written all of this stuff on abolition, but I don't know about, I don't know if that's going to work. Because, of course, from the inside, it looks very different. And so I had to learn to be patient and to listen and to recognize that not everyone will immediately embrace abolition, especially given the fact that most people assume that it's just about getting rid of things, dismantling institutions, destroying institutions, and not about building and creating alternatives. So it took a while, but we had to hear, and my partner Gina engaged in a lot of those conversations as well. And so we had to listen and learn that there's, I think I learned a great deal about abolition and what it means to adopt a feminist stance, and then women. Construed very broadly. So I'm sorry, I'm like really thinking now. I'm not supposed to be doing this in public, but I'm re-experiencing those amazing walks and bicycle
I remember the conversation on your deck, you and me and Kathy and Gina, and we spent all afternoon. It was talking about abolition and what does it mean, and when you're in prison and what it looks like, and you can't imagine because it's like, well, what are they going to do with us? You know what I mean? And so it's hard to grasp at those. And the care that Kathy always had for people who we had harmed as well. And how she held that so close to her being to not cause any more harm. Yeah.
Angela, before I move from you, I want to know, you remember that first Beyond the Bars conference? It was quite a journey. We didn't know what was going to happen, but the place was packed.
I know, there were it seemed like thousands of people there.
There were. I remember Kathy coming behind stage and she says, we have a lot more people than we expected. Yeah, it was standing room only.
Right.
But it was amazing and beautiful. And I think it really gave her that catalyst to say, yeah, we can do this, and we'll keep doing it and make it work. So I'm having a moment, just reflecting. Kathy loved to dance. And she was a bit of a fashionista. Closeted, but a fashionista nonetheless. But that's not what we're here to talk about much. But Jose. I want to project 5 years in the future. Okay. And Kathy is whispering in your ear. This is going to happen, by the way. Kathy's whispering in your ear, and she's telling you what the next horizon is to work on. What do you think that's going to be?
Whoa. It's hard to get into Kathy's head. But it will probably be something around building. Kathy believed in building. And you know, we had these long conversations at night, you know, around what are we going to do with interpersonal violence in our communities? How can we build avenues to deal with that? And that was something that, you know, we've always had problems with. The communities most impacted by mass incarceration are also impacted by interpersonal violence. And dealing with state violence doesn't necessarily address interpersonal violence. We have to tackle that head on. So I think Kathy will be whispering in my ear along the journey that we have to start building. We have to start building pathways so that now that we've addressed the carceral system, we have to address other systems of oppressions that are not structures.
So, you know, Francis, Kathy will have the ability to whisper to a lot of us. So now she's visiting you. 5 years forward, what do you think she's going to tell you is the next thing you need to be working on?
That's a great question. I feel like in general, I feel like her vision, what I've taken from her is to create a safe space for young people. So far we have a decent space that we can all fit in, where we can come and plan what it is we want our futures to look like, or what we see, how we see the world should look like. Hopefully, God willing, in 5 years, a bigger space where not so much people that are only directly impacted, but just the general public having the knowledge of some of these things that go on behind closed doors, and then being able to be invited into our space, see how we kind of maneuver, how we think, and then being part of the work versus us having to introduce the work that we're doing to them already being part of it. So that's the hope for the future. Hopefully that is something that's going to happen. Yes.
Yes. So Debbie, I think Kathy's going to visit you next. 5 years forward. She celebrated what you've accomplished in those 5 years, but you know she's not done. And so what do you think she'll be suggesting to you, ever so gently, that you take up?
I think it'll be the ongoing conversations that we had before she left us. And it was about our grannies and their life. And at times when I've come to New York, I've brought one of my grannies here, and so Pipey spent a lot of time with Kathy, and Kathy wasn't a granny then.
Explain what a granny is.
Oh, a grandchild. Sorry. Angela's my interpreter, Australian interpreter.
Granny means grandmother.
Well, it could be a grandfather or a grandmother, a granny. It's the grandchild, right? Anyway. Okay, we got it? Yeah, and then Kathy became a grandmother. And so I think in 5 years' time, it's about building our grannies, our grandchildren, our little ones up, because they are our future. And to build them up in a world where they're safe and cared for and don't have to rely on any type of carceral logic. And that's what we have to build. Yeah.
So Angela, you know Kathy's going to be whispering to you like 24/7, 365. She won't wait for 5 years, but let's assume we put her on pause for just 5 years. What do you think she's going to say are the things you must focus on the most?
Well, she'll probably say that we have to do something to guarantee that there is a planet left to support all of the victories that we want. And you know that when our older people come home, that there is a home left. And so I imagine that there will be a Beyond the Bars conference inspired by Kathy that will very specifically look at the relationship between struggling against mass incarceration and struggling to save the environment. And that actually that's actually kind of obvious now, isn't it? But that is, I mean, it's, you know, some of that work is happening. It's happening in Atlanta, in the Stop Cop City movement. Environmentalists have come together with abolitionists. And I think it's up to us, you know, here in New York and all over the country and all over the world to expand the terrain of that work. And Kathy will be right there inspiring us, telling us what our themes should be.
True, so very, very true. You know, Kathy was, as I think you referenced it, in the most subtle of ways, always educating and learning at the same time. But she also taught, right? And she taught us, all of us, and many of you in the audience, we all have the opportunity to channel her as an educator going forward, carry her legacy forward in that way. Starting with you, Frances, suddenly you are in the classroom as a tenured faculty member at Columbia University. All right, come on, back it up. And you are introducing your students to Kathy Boudin. What are you going to tell them that they need to remember from this woman and inspire them as they choose their careers?
Another great one. Off the top of my head, I will introduce unity because I feel like that's what she stood for. So I will introduce unity and just the will to keep pushing. Because I feel like the circumstances that we're going against is even past the physical realm. It's spiritual at this point. So I'll introduce how powerful Kathy lived and how influential she was, how great she was at planning and gathering, and that ultimately the goal is for us to come together as one, whatever it is they're working towards. Just up here so far we've discussed so many different issues that society is battling, from the planet to mass incarceration, etc. So just whatever avenue that it is that you're passionate in, to find like-minded people and to push with no regard of stopping. And that's off the top of my head, that's something that I would like to push and add to whoever it is that's coming after me, or that I would like to introduce to anybody that would like to do this work. That would be kind of like my mindset, unity, and just be tough in your journey, be resilient, and keep pushing, basically, because we never give up at Echoes, where I come from. That's one of our go-to slogans, is to never give up. So it will be something like all of this that I've said.
I love it. So Jose, Frances is teaching the introductory course, and you're teaching the next level course after his students have finished that course. Kathy's inspiring you as well. So this is going to be the Geraldine, this is the Kathy Boudin Department now at Columbia University. So, Jose, what's going to happen in, I guess that would be course 201. You've done 101.
201.
I think my students are going to learn something that they perhaps will find very difficult to learn. Kathy will teach them over a period of time, by example, it's not a lecture, how to become a revolutionary humanitarian.
Yes.
I love it. That should keep them busy. Now, Deb, you're going to do the exchange student course.
Oh, okay. Right.
And so this is going to be a little different from Angela's exchange experience when nobody was sent from the north to the south. There's going to be some students from Jose's class who are coming to spend time in your class, and you're going to send some of your students to Jose. What are you going to make sure that Jose's students, and Francis's students too, both of y'all can send some students over to Deb, what are the students who come to you going to learn that you teach them that's inspired from your experience in knowing and channeling Kathy?
What about unity and being a revolution? But I think also about that we are all in this together, no matter what. No matter who we are, what skills we bring, what experience we've had, we are all in this together. And that's how we move things, that's how we move mountains, that's how we move and demolish prisons, is together. So inspiring, building up, and sending out to the world, knowing that we're all in this together no matter what, and you can come back and move in and out of that relationship because that relationship has now started and will continue forever on in your life.
Okay. Now, once they finish these 3 courses, Angela, then we're coming to you in the PhD program. Okay. But you will tell them how the education that they've gotten there to shape into their work in the world. What pearls of wisdom inspired by Kathy will you give them?
Well, when is this course taking place?
It's probably going to be a lifelong learning class.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would ask, this is a graduate seminar, right?
These are graduates, yes.
I would ask them to think about the nature of knowledge, the venues from which knowledge is, the venues in which knowledge is produced. I would ask them to think about the knowledge they have acquired from their professionally developed faculty. Is this at a university?
Columbia.
Oh, it's at Columbia. That's right. Okay, yeah. Oh, yes. Well, I would definitely ask them this question.
We've taken over Columbia University.
Okay. But I would like to ask them about the nature of interdisciplinarity. And not just about different disciplines, bringing different disciplines together, but to think about it more broadly. And how can advanced knowledge be acquired from those who are caught up in the web of the carceral system?
So I would like to ask them to do a project in which they would go inside and meet with a number of people who have been locked up inside for a long time, and ask them for some of their ideas regarding how we might solve some of the pressing problems in this so-called free world. And I would ask them to think about the work that Eddie Ellis did. And to read his letter about language. And I would ask them to think about how those of us who inhabit the free world might be assisted by enlisting those who are inside to create a what would you call it? I don't want to use the words that we normally use to talk about people coming together and thinking inside capitalist institutions and so forth. But I would like them to figure out how precisely we might enlist the insight and the knowledge that has been acquired by people who have spent long periods of time behind bars. So that's going to be some of the people you're working to bring home. But allow them to participate in creating a better place to be brought home to. Because knowing Kathy's experience, because she was one of those who taught people on the outside when she was on the inside. And as you pointed out, the parenting from a distance program. So how do we enlist those experiences and that deep knowledge to help solve some of the problems that will hopefully keep our planet alive in the future?
Thank you. We since we've taken over Columbia University, and some of us are aware that many, not just Columbia, Ivy League institutions don't usually harp too much on humility and being humble. Okay. But Kathy, we all know, embodied both of those things. So starting with you, Francis, with your students in the 101 class, how would they learn from you, or what will you teach them about what it means and how to embody humility and being humble as you learned it and saw it lived by Kathy?
I know that one thing that we always say is that people assume that, quote unquote, only bad people go to prison. That's what the average person may think. And we know that's not the case. So my set of thoughts are that you can also be in that position. You may feel free, but it doesn't take that much for you to be in the opposite position, whether that is prison, jail, whatever you want to call it, as far as losing your freedom. And so the fact that we are in the same boat, it is important to not feel better or feel higher than the other individual, whether that person is inside or outside. So that's how I will start with my humility teaching. And then just like how we move and conjugate at Echoes, is that we're all learning from each other because we have unique experiences that make us all some form of teachers. And so since I can learn from a child, I can learn from an adult. I'm teaching you, but in this moment, I'm learning from you. And so just setting that precedent, I feel like puts us on the same plateau where we're then able to learn from each other's experiences. And then if there are ways, we can come up with solutions then. So these are some of the ways that I will kind of begin my teachings.
Okay. Jose, in your 201 class, your students have successfully navigated what Francis had to teach them, and they might be feeling just a little bit full of themselves. And then they had the blessing of having you as a professor heading an organization that has made tremendous strides in New York State, and they might feel that they're ready to be your successor any moment. How will you help them to understand the journey of struggle and the necessity of humility as one seeks to create a better world?
I think I would show them examples of what we don't want to replicate and how what we're trying to bring down got to that point in history. And anything that resembles these hierarchies of oppression, we have to avoid at all costs. I think when people see that there's separation, you know, one group is separated from another based on superficial things, then we know that we have to create unity with those groups. I think when we start embracing the humanity of people at a very fundamental level, and not look for defects, not look for things that are different, but just look at the person as a human being just like you. I think that creates a sense of humility that is contagious. And I think, you know, I have to say this, that Kathy was that type of person. You know, you would never know that she spent over 2 decades in prison. I tell you, when I see a formerly incarcerated person, and it's just a habit that I have to get rid of, I look for the scars, because nobody survives 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades without being scarred. Mm-hmm. And if you're able to overcome that and maintain that basic sense of being a decent human being, then you're an example for others to follow.
Deborah, I think that you're going to be fortunate to get some students who have not embodied all of America's arrogance when they get to you for this special exchange student opportunity. And you want to even send them back to Angela, even better than they came to you. So during their 1 year of exchange student experience with you, how will you help them to really cultivate that humility and that focus on being a humanitarian and not the narcissism that seems to be born between the Atlantic and the Pacific here?
As I heard Jose and Francis speaking, I thought the best thing to do for our students is that we're going to go on a trip. We're going to go on a trip and visit the women in one of Bogota's prisons. We're going to sit with those women who are serving 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years in a prison that's massively overcrowded, where women in 2 cells, 50 of them have to share, where there's no running water or toilet paper. But they meet us in the chapel with their papers and pens, where they are independent human rights monitors, documenting what's happening in that prison and handing it out through the formerly incarcerated women's organisation that is operating there in Bogota. to expose the realities and get laws changed. To sit with those women and that strength and that inspiration. Cheryl and I were just there 2 weeks ago, and we sat and listened, and there was 2 women there sitting beside me who had got to the point of their sentence where they could go out and do community service from the prison, and they started a cleaning business. So they had 4 bits of equipment that would probably cost us maybe $500 US, but there it costs $5,000 US. And so they got one set of equipment, these 4 pieces of equipment, to clean houses and carpets. And the 2 women that started the business, it pays their wages and for the ongoing business, and they want more equipment. And their inspiration and their vision and their motivation is actually light years than probably what I see in our own prisons at home in Australia. So to sit with that, and even basic trying to communicate if you don't speak Spanish, is very difficult. So you're relying on other women in the prison that has some English and can translate. So I would actually take them there for that experience and to understand that and to see how women in Colombia actually survive their prison sentence, and then bring that back and talk about the impact of that, because they will be scarred by that experience, but that's not the purpose why I want to take them. The purpose is this is the raw reality that you actually will not ever experience in your life, but here, this is an opportunity and an honour to be able to sit with these women who are incarcerated in this prison in Bogota.
I think that should do it. Yes. I think, Angela, after the students have had those experiences, what are you going to do with them?
Well, that's a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what I would do is ask them to produce some kind of written work that documents their experiences, that analyzes them. But I don't want them to do the work individually. I want them to do it collectively. So let's see, we'll have at least 3 or 4. How large is this class?
I have a feeling we'll only get about 25.
Okay. All right, well, let's set up 5 groups, 5 collectives. And in order to pass the class, they will have to produce a brilliant piece of work. But they'll not be able to take credit for it individually.
Okay. I like that.
So the credit is completely collective. If they're being graded, nobody gets an A unless the entire project
That's an A.
is a good project and one to which they all contributed equally. I mean, I'm thinking about the way Kathy worked and how that would translate into learning. Because people, of course, have very different strengths. And if you ask people individually to do exactly the same thing, then some are going to, gravitate toward their own strengths, and they'll do well. And others who might be capable of doing brilliant work in other areas will never be recognized for it. So I want this to be a collective project. And I think Columbia could also use more collectivity.
So I'm going to thank you for that. I think we've created at least 25 amazing, humble activists and scholars. Cameron, I'm going to check in with you about a time check before I move on to my next question. How am I doing? 25. Oh, great. I can really get away with a lot in 25 minutes. So, I believe in reincarnation. Okay? And I'm going to ask all of you to go on a little reincarnation journey with me for the next, don't worry, I haven't eliminated any of you, right? So we're going to go on a little reincarnation journey. All of us are going to be reincarnated. We get a chance to do this journey over again. Kathy is by our side. Okay? The work that we set out to do during this existence, we've completed. So now we're in a huddle. The four of you are in a huddle with Kathy. Right? And together, because we're into collectivity, we've decided, I'm watching, okay? I'm not part of the huddle. The five of you will have decided what you're going to focus your collective energy on, and this is 25 years into the future. We've saved the planet. Okay, that's done. So we don't have to worry about whether or not we're here, okay? So I'm going to start with you, Deborah. It's 25 years into the future. Kathy is part of the conversation. What have the five of you collectively decided is a thing to focus on?
And the planet is saved?
The planet's saved. Done.
So
good job.
Prisons are dismantled?
No, wait. You
Wait. No.
the whole script, okay?
No, but
Because
if you
the
say-
one is not going to happen without the
Yeah,
other. That we know.
Okay. Listen, this is our hypothetical. You want the prisons to be dismantled and the planet is saved. Okay, those two things are part of the foundation.
I think we just have a party, right? We are free.
Okay, so
I don't think so.
Well, I don't think so either, but it's like I'm just taking the lead.
Okay, so I'm going to shift. Andrew, what do you think about focusing on 25 years forward?
Thinking about that, because even if we do save the planet 25 years from now, who knows, what we will be confronting.
Sure.
And anyway, at some point, the planet is going to go out of existence, whatever we do. And human beings will no longer exist. The species will become extinct.
They may not be ready to hear that 25 years from now.
Well, but I'm thinking about, maybe 25,000 years from now. Okay. But I think it's important to exercise our capacity to conceptualize by taking on these questions and to ask ourselves, what do we do knowing that nothing is going to last forever? Precisely because the reason the planet is in such bad shape today, it will go out of existence, but it doesn't have to go out of existence so soon. It's in the bad shape that it is precisely because of the capitalist proclivity to assume that what exists now will exist forever. And so I would say that unless capitalism no longer exists,
that could be the focus.
Well, that's going to take us a long time.
You said 25 years isn't enough?
That's not enough. I mean, 50 years ago, we thought we were nearing the end of capitalism. We thought we were about to dismantle capitalism. And so I think that we should prepare ourselves for a struggle that actually has infinite dimensions. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it's kind of exciting that there will always be new issues because we haven't even, talked about what what we do about all of the animals that are suffering. And you know, there's so many issues that we have not yet even broached. So I want us to be in a frame of mind that allows us to recognize that whatever victories we win, those victories are never permanent. They are never permanent. And that we also have to be willing to defend them. Because even if capitalism as we know it, I mean, that's not going to happen in 25 years, we know that. But we always have to defend, you know, the victories that we won, and to be open to recognizing the way other issues and problems and challenges take shape. I mean, I think it would be really boring if all of the problems of the world were solved and we had nothing to do but
party.
Party. I mean, partying is great.
We can dance. Kathy can lead us.
Well, that's true. That's true.
But I agree. 25 years.
If we're going to make a revolution,
We've got to dance.
We've got to dance, as our sister Emma said.
Okay. So I'm going to find out from you, Francis, as part of this collective, it's 25 years in the future. Kathy's now part of the co-conspiracies. She's back in the game. What is it that you feel we'll be focusing on as a #1 priority at that point in time?
So many issues. It's very difficult to just pick one to tackle. So I guess I will try to empower the youth. I feel like some of the most beautiful things that's happening now in this line of work is that we get to document things really well. So from written documents of what we've been up to videos of what we've been up to, these will be blueprints for the youth to start building on, like he stated earlier. And so this blueprint from all the work that you have done, from all the work that Kathy has done, as a young man, I always wondered why the hell there aren't there any blueprints. Like, had a hard time just shaving my face, you know, ingrowns. And I was like, where's the blueprint? You know, where is the blueprint that my uncles, my dads, the neighbors, these men, like, where's the blueprint they left us? So that's what I was, in that moment, I'm seeing that we can have this solid blueprint that is going to be all collective works that we've worked on. One that has to do with the planet, one that has to do with mass incarceration, one that has to do with feminism, you name it, all of it under one umbrella. And then we're going to get to dissect those issues and find solutions and better ways to kind of deal with those issues in a healthy way. I believe in restorative justice. I believe in sitting down, sitting still, meditating. I believe in circles. So creating a society where we have that unity and that we are all moving towards one goal as one, that is the vision I'm seeing. And it will be focused towards taking the knowledge from the elders and then bringing that knowledge down to the youth and then deciphering that knowledge down with the youth, creating a very sturdy blueprint that they will then move on with. We have technology at our hands now. We have AI helping us do half of the heavy lifting. So investing in the youth, spending time with them, passing down the knowledge, passing down the torch with them, and then helping them figure out the rest of the answers. I feel like by that time, I'm gonna be tired. And if I'm not tired, you guys are gonna be tired. So the most important thing is passing down that knowledge to who has the most strength in the moment.
Amen. Jose, you've been sitting with this collective. They've abolished prisons. They've saved the planet. Francis has given a complete amen moment. What do you think is left? Oh, and Deborah's got us dancing.
I'm not as optimistic. 25 years is not a long time. It may be a long time you're in prison, but it's really not a long time in history. But in 25 years from now, we should have a foundation that we can build off. We should have been able to address some of the differences that were created for us to divide us. We should have been able to address some of our quarrels. And like George Jackson says, settle these quarrels and come together. We should have been able to develop some type of unity that's based on love for each other. And we should be prepared to defend what we have developed. It's not going to be easy to wrestle power away from these people. But we should recognize at that point that we have the greater power. And it's up to us how we're going to exert the power that we have. But it's not going to be an easy task. We have to be prepared to make sacrifices. Whether those sacrifices are in just having very little material things so that we can develop more collective power, be able to share what we have so everybody doesn't have a whole lot, or greater sacrifices. But we have to be willing to make whatever sacrifices are required for us to raise a generation that's free of a lot of these self-destructive defects and able to actually be a vanguard for a new age.
Okay. So I think, Cameron's going to tell me if I'm wrong, I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Is that? Okay. So where are our microphone holders? All right, so I want to share a few house rules. The first house rule is we're getting ready to go into questions and answers. I think most of you learned quite some time ago that questions end with a question mark. If you have come to the microphone prepared to give a speech, talk to Cheryl about next year's panel. Okay? We're not going to hear your speech tonight. It's just questions. The answers come from our panelists. Okay? Everybody got the house rules? So now you know if someone violates the house rules, they're at risk. Okay? We're not going to tell you what happens. They're at risk. So where's our 2 microphone holders? They have been told strictly not to relinquish the microphone. If you make a grab for the microphone, you'll be wrestled to the floor. Okay. So the mics are you all coming down the aisle with the mics? How's that? People are going to come back to you? Yeah. And you can just come to the center aisle? Okay. Go for it. If you have a question, we're waiting with bated breath to hear it. Okay.
Peace to everyone. First of all, I think that "don't grab the mic" comment was meant for me. So
she's not going to let it go. Don't even try it.
Hello. Yes, question. Queen, can you explain or speak to the importance of defending our political prisoners, or can you, let me put the question for him, can you let the crowd know what are political prisoners? Angela. Thank you, sister.
Is that question directed to any of the 4 panelists?
He said Angela.
Angela and, of course, Jose.
Okay. Angela?
A bunch of black panties in the back. Sorry about that.
You want to take on the question?
Or do you want to answer first, Jose?
Well, I have a very short answer. We inherited political and social and economic conditions that makes us all political prisoners.
I think that there are multiple ways to approach the question of who counts as a political prisoner. And certainly, as Jose said, because of the way our society is structured, because of the role of carceral institutions, the police, we have to think about political prisoners not only as those who are incarcerated because of specific kinds of political beliefs and practices, but those who are the targets of the political repression, the racist repression that is meted out by these carceral institutions. So that I think sometimes it makes sense to point out the fact that certain organizers and activists are targeted, but you don't necessarily privilege them as recipients of the kind of work that you're doing over those who are in prison because of the fact that the prison is a racist institution. So I think we have to learn how to bring, those approaches together, and ultimately try to figure out how to dismantle the institutions themselves, the police, the prisons, ICE, and Child Protective Services, and all of these carceral institutions in our society.
And I would only add that along with that, there's certainly people who have been specifically targeted. COINTELPRO clearly was designed to destroy people who stood up, spoke out, and took action, and were the first political prisoners recognized and targeted to be destroyed by this government.
And when we think about Leonard Peltier, who should be here in this so-called free world with us right now, Mumia Abu-Jamal, and
there's the ones we freed. There's many that we freed as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And we must keep on working at that. I think we have.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Second question.
Hello, everybody on the panel. I would like to know what lessons did you get from the teachings of Kathy? Just one statement. What were the lessons that you came out with?
Okay. Who would like to go first?
One word will be just resilience.
We'll just go down the road. Jose?
So many things Kathy taught me, but the one thing, because of my age, the one thing that she taught me that I will take to my grave is how to die with dignity.
I said earlier that I have always been impressed by Kathy's determination and by her capacity to figure out how you deal with this enormous problem. And knowing that you never deal with it alone, knowing that you always bring everyone with you as a condition of discovering the solution to the problem. So that kind of thoroughgoing collective approach to the world is what I always think about when I think about Kathy.
For me, I think it's, there's a number of things, but what comes to me is about active listening, and then in that bringing together the understanding of what connects us, which is more than what disconnects us.
Yes. I think, yes, we have time for another question.
Hello, how y'all doing tonight? How are y'all?
Peace.
Peace. So my name is Najee Lurie. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm a native of Brooklyn, right? And I wanted to ask the question of what type of programs are available for young people like me. I'm a new social activist based upon my experience in New York City and Brooklyn. And I'm into the film, I'm into arts, I'm also into music. So I produce, I do a lot of different things, and I want to be a part to teach the youth, as my man's right here was saying, to connect with these people. So I just wanted to know if there's any programs that you guys have I could be a part of, or people could be a part of, to make this process a little bit easier for all of us.
Okay, did my panelists hear the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we can talk more after, but I'm in an organization called Echoes of Incarceration. The past year, we've done about 3 different cohorts with a bunch of young people, teaching them technical skills with cameras and basically how to tell their story through filmmaking. And so we have that avenue. We can connect more, and you can learn more about us. And if you're interested, you can potentially join us.
Okay, thank you, Francis. I don't know if there's anybody else in the queue. We could probably squeeze in one more question and answer, as long as the question ends with what? A question mark.
Hi, my name is Savannah Miles. I'm a history defender, and I'm also from the Bronx. Much like Jose, I don't have much hope that 25 years will change much, and I guess my organization is like a good microcosm of that. It's defined by a place that transforms and dismantles systems, but I've witnessed it becoming a system of its own. So my question is, what keeps all of you, or what kept Kathy going on a physical, spiritual, and emotional level when navigating the traumas of being oppressed while also fighting oppression actively? And like basically fighting trauma while experiencing it, just because it is such an emotionally heavy weight to carry all of the time. So what kept you going? What do you believe kept Kathy going? Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you for that question. Okay, you want to take that first?
What keeps me going is I know the human value of the people I left behind. Yes. I know who they are. Not who they were, but who they are. And not one of them deserves to die in prison.
Yeah.
What kept myself going, is having a group of people that are like-minded. I keep bringing up Echoes, but that's where we spend most times. A bunch of young people, different age groups, and we share stories. Last week, we've been hanging out with a young lady since January. She's beautiful, she's talented, she's very wise. And we did the art of interviewing, so we ended up interviewing them. They told a quick version of their stories. And just that moment, hearing how much trauma that they were holding over their head and still being so beautiful, that's some of the things that keeps me going, to know that people struggle with such heavy baggage, and sometimes they carry it so well. So to be able to come to a place where you can let that baggage down, be able to, kind of do inventory and feel free, that's some of the things that keep us going. Sharing our stories, finding solutions, or just confiding in each other. That safe space is what keeps us going. So then we don't feel so alone, we don't feel so isolated, and through that process we find solutions. So that's how we keep going.
I suppose at Sisters Inside, what keeps me going, because it's the organisation that we started from a group of lifers and long-termers in prison back in the early 90s. And we left a lot of women behind. However, the number of women and girls now has tripled plus. And also with the mass incarceration of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women and girls. So those women and girls are what gets me up every morning to free them. So in whatever form that takes. Whether it's me with my lawyer's hat in, fighting in court, getting them out on bail, representing families who've had a loved one who's died in custody to try and get them some justice, some answers. So basically to free women and girls. But also what lifts me up, which what Kathy did and did for so many of us as formerly incarcerated women, is that we know we've lived prison, we've breathed the prison system, we've been violated by the prison system. So we don't have to talk about that much. We have a connection of sisters that will always hold us up together, strong to move forward, to free the rest of our sisters.
Well, I would say that I don't feel as if my life at this moment in this century, in this place, is unconnected from the lives of people in other times and in other places. And I feel that we have a responsibility to those who came before us and to those who are coming after us to guarantee that this struggle continues. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're capable of winning the means with which to completely reconstruct this world for the future. But what we can do is guarantee that the struggle will continue, that a luta continua. And we do this by struggling today and creating the kind of legacy that Kathy Boudin has so phenomenally created that will inspire others to continue to struggle long after we're gone.
Yes, thank you. Let's give it up for our panelists.
I just want to say that I didn't have to ask this group twice to participate and be on this panel. I don't even think I got the whole sentence out. And everybody was, yeah, of course, no problem. Some was probably 3 days ago I asked. So I truly appreciate y'all and just coming out and uplifting Kathy and her work and all the things that she means to us as a movement. But we're not going to end this without some sort of celebration. Yolanda, where you at? Come on. Let's do this. Because we got to do something. It's her birthday. I feel like she's going to kill me. Come on, let's do it. Come on, here you go. Here you go.
All right, y'all ready? Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. Come on. Happy birthday. Ooh, happy birthday. Y'all got to move. Come on now. Come on. Hey. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy
Woo! Thanks for coming out. We truly appreciate you. Happy birthday, Kathy. We love you. All right, baby.
Yes, happy birthday.